Continuing with the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Japan, this move is a continuation of the 2006 U.S.-Japan relocation plan. It is expected that approximately 4,000 Marine Corps members will be relocated to Guam and 5,000 will move to Hawaii, leaving only 10,000 U.S. troops stationed in Okinawa. This adjustment not only optimizes military deployments, but also reflects the latest developments in the U.S. strategy for balancing the presence in the Asia-Pacific region. The Japanese Ministry of Defense has stated that the relocation of U.S. forces will be carried out in stages, with a first phase involving withdrawal of around 100 personnel. The relocation is expected to cost about $8.6 billion US dollars, with Japan contributing up to $2.8 billion. The U.S. military will construct command centers, barracks, and training facilities at the new locations, and Japan's self-defense forces will also have the opportunity to jointly use these training areas. So as we can see, Okinawa is the military cornerstones for U.S. defense of the first island chain. Although Okinawa's land area accounts for only 0.6% of Japan's total territory, it hosts 70.3% of U.S. military-based facilities in Japan. So my first question is directed to you, Professor Chen. Could you please provide an overview, a brief analysis of the strategic importance of Okinawa?
So Okinawa as an island, of course, is part of a first island chain. So Okinawa as a territory, it stations troops and it can provide assistance and support, logistic support to military forces. So the importance of Okinawa is that it has been a U.S. military base for a very, very long time, since World War II. So it has been, like you said, 70% of the U.S. armed forces concentrate on Okinawa. That makes Okinawa an important strategic point.
So talking about the importance of Okinawa, we understand that in October 2024, the U.S. and Japan held a large-scale joint military drill called Keen Sword 25. And now the U.S. has its relocation plan. And what kind of unusual message has been sent? Kai-chun?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think, there are several elements towards this. I mean, the first one is absolutely when it comes to the U.S. government finally making its commitment with the Japanese government for the agreement that they signed in 2006. There's also a trend, I think, when it comes to U.S. military's emphasis on the survivability and also force preservation when it comes to this region, as the Chinese so-called A2AD area access and anti-denial capability has been gradually increasing. And I think the third so-called aspect is, I think the U.S. is expecting the Japanese self-defense force to play a larger role in the future's region security. Of course, the timing does invite certain speculations, as all the countries involved and nearby or affected by such changes are experiencing major political changes in their societies. And, this might impact the existing security arrangement in the region, but we have to wait and see. Right.
So moving on, according to a report by the ABC News, the U.S. Marine Corps is committed to defending Japan and will maintain its military presence in the Indo-Pacific region through station and also rotational forces in Japan, Guam, and Hawaii in support of the operational needs of a free and open Pacific, which is a very important policy of the United States. So how should this be interpreted, Professor?
I think this is, like Kai-chun just mentioned, it means that Japanese forces may take more responsibility in the future military installation and future military plan. But also, we have to understand that even though the U.S. is trying to increase the survivability of its forces, it does not mean that it has weaker commitment to Japanese security. Actually, the rotational forces also occurred in the case of Australia. So this kind of rotation is not uncommon in U.S. military deployment.
So you said that this is something that we have seen adopted by the United States elsewhere. Do you foresee any new strategies when it comes to the military cooperation between the U.S. and Japan?
I think, as I said, Japanese armed forces will take more responsibility and they will coordinate with the U.S. in case of armed conflict in East China Sea, Korea Peninsula, or even Taiwan Strait. However, the degree of involvement of the Japanese armed forces is still uncertain, but because at the end of the day, we know that Japanese armed forces will focus on the security of Japanese territory instead of foreign territory.
So definitely we understand that for the security of Japan, that's the most important thing for Japan as a nation. But my question for you, Kai-chun, we understand that the U.S. forces have sent the troops in Okinawa for a long time. Why do the U.S. choose to have this relocation plan initiated or implemented right now? Because previously we have heard about the complaints, whether it's about the noise or the crimes or the pollution related with the U.S. military stationed in Okinawa. There were no actions whatsoever. But why now? What about the timing?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think when it comes to timing, to a certain extent, I think is perhaps you might listen to what the Japanese and the American government will say is that maybe this has been planning for a very long time. And then, it might happen to be one of President Biden's, perhaps one of the things that he really wants to achieve. So, approaching the end of his term, I think this is something that he really, really wants to realize. And also, just to echo the professor, when we talked about U.S. Commitments and also their capabilities in the region is not being diminished, I think because what we are seeing right now is the redeployment of the marine elements. But we also need to understand that the 7th Fleet hasn't left. The Kaneda Air Base on Okinawa still has, for example, the 18th U.S. wing and also the, what is it called, the 353rd Special Operations Wing. So, when it comes to any kinds of contingency in the region, usually we see the priority deployment of the air and also the sea element. So I think, the U.S. commitment towards this region remain solid.
Yes, Professor?
If I may add, so in addition to what Kai-chun just said, if this might be something the Biden administration want to do, we also have to consider the Japanese government. So the current governor of Okinawa, Tamaki Danny, has been a long-time opposer of the U.S. military base in Okinawa. So the domestic political pressure is actually pretty huge for the Japanese government for a very long time. So for Japanese government, this might be a relief. And this is something that they can tell Okinawa people that we are doing something.
And they have seen some results,
yes.
right? So kind of like the legacy of the Biden administration and also the internal pressure from Okinawa. Moving on, we understand that Trump will take office very soon in January. And as reported by Kyodo News, Trump is set to hold talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba in mid-January. So do you think that after Trump takes office, will there be a major shift in terms of the military cooperation between the U.S. and Japan? Or do you think that he will continue on this path? Kai-chun?
Oh, that's a good question. As for the prospect of Trump-Ishiba relations, I think, personally, I think he can build on to the solid relationship that was formed between the two countries with former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe with Trump. And I think one of the clear evidence is that I think it's 1 week in a few days ago that the widow of Prime Minister Abe, Akiye Abe, met with Trump. So I think that's one of the things that I think Ishiba can absolutely build upon in the future.
Professor?
Well, I think the meeting where we just mentioned has some meaning. So Aki didn't mention anything about meeting with Trump in the future between the Prime Minister of Prime Minister Ishiba, but there might be somebody who proposed to Trump, and Trump just answered that question. So in a press conference a few days later, we see that Trump seems to agree with a meeting before his inauguration. Which means that's pretty special.
Yes,
right?
that sounds like something very important.
Right, but I would say that Trump and Ishiba will talk about something more than security. They will talk about economy. They will talk about Japan's trade with the United States, and security is just one of the issues.